lives in your midst. And I have never been to a conference in over 20 years where there wasn't at least one or two, and sometimes three or four, advanced extraterrestrial intelligences in the audience. They move around among you. They sit beside you in restaurants, in airplanes, in conferences like this. And only in the last few years, when I have really gotten deeply into this matter, they have begun to come up and introduce themselves to me at conferences. You think that isn't a bit of a shock? I kind of learned like Ingo Swann. I developed the ability to kind of spot them. It's kind of an intuitive inner awareness, I think, that I have been able to develop over the years, where I can go into a room full of people and I can generally, as Ingo says, spot one or two. And people keep coming up to tell me and say, introduce me, show me who it is, tell me, Well, that would not be very nice, because I don't want to put them on the spot. You never know what human beings might do. Anyhow, the story is simply the greatest story in human history. It's underway. And I say extraterrestrial intelligence, and I must clarify here. When I retired from the Army in 1976, which is back before a lot of you were even born, we knew that we were not only dealing with people who were coming here from other planets, we were dealing with people who were coming here from other star systems. We learned that we were dealing with people who were showing up here from other galaxies. And in 76, when I retired, the Army had learned that we're dealing with guys that are popping through portals from other dimensions. And it's, my God, put this all together. Interplanetary, interstellar, intergalactic. The universe is not at all what you might think it is. It's a strange, beautiful, glorious universe filled with intelligent life. But it's not at all what your scientists and your astronomers and your astrophysicists have told you. Not at all. And there's a young man in the front row shaking his head because he knows. Where am I? Okay, I have been running a little feud with Carrie Cassidy. I love the girl. She's a sweet person. Carrie and Bill have almost become like family to me over the years. But Carrie and I have had this little difference of opinion for some time about disclosure. Now, you heard the joke, you've heard the games, you've heard all the yakety-yak about, is there going to be disclosure? Is somebody at some point going to have a news conference and get up in front of a whole bunch of people, the president, as it were, hey guys, have we got news for you? Golly, we're not alone. Yak, yak, yak. You can just hear the excitement and all. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that ain't going to happen. Because I've learned that the story is simply too damn big. There is not going to be a disclosure, and I appreciate Carrie, and I love her dearly. But in my opinion, the story is simply too damn big. And the analogy that I use is, it's like opening Pandora's box. Many of you are familiar, most of you probably are familiar with the old story, the myth about the lovely girl in ancient Greece who was given a box by one of the gods, and in this box were treasures, but in that box were also furies. And she was advised never to open that box. Well, being a young girl, thank you, that's very thoughtful of you. Being a young girl, like young girls are, she couldn't resist, and she opened the box. And she saw the treasures. But she also saw the furies. And the reality of the extraterrestrial presence is like opening Pandora's box. You can't open it just a little peep. You can't open it just a little crack. Because once you open it just a tiny bit, boom, the whole damn thing flies open. And all of it comes out. Not only the treasures, but the furies. And there's nobody in government who's stupid enough to, in my opinion, to open Pandora's box. Now, I will tell you that, in my opinion, a form of disclosure is underway. But I consider it a type of disclosure which I describe as subliminal education. It's been going on for 20 years. It's been going on for more than that, going on for 40 years. But I do not plan to be on the planet long enough to see disclosure. And I'm hanging around for another year, maybe. So, you know. You guys will see it. Many of you will. Young men like David will might see it. But it's happening. But you ain't going to get a news conference, a press conference, where the president gets up and says, "Hey, we got big news." Old Barack is not stupid. He's got enough on his plate right now that he sure as hell doesn't want to get involved with this thing. Because it really is the greatest story in human history, and it's the story of human history. And it's the story of who you are, what you are, how you came to be, and where you're going. As I said, we're not alone. We've never been alone. We've had this intimate interrelationship with advanced intelligence. That interrelationship is still underway, and it's still taking place. And the human race, the human species, is changing, growing, developing, changing in front of our very eyes. Now, what is some of the big story here? What is some of the secrets? What is really going on? Well, again, forgive me because I tend to ramble. But I excuse myself. You know. When I was young, many years ago, I was trained to be an intelligence analyst. I was trained by the Army to be an intelligence analyst. And I think many of you know exactly what an intelligence analyst is. You gather data. You collect data. You weigh, you sift, you evaluate, you analyze data to try to figure out what the hell is going on. As we used to say, you massage the data continually. You never stop collecting. You never stop analyzing, evaluating, weighing it, and sifting it. And you, eventually, if you're successful, you come up with a fact, a theory, a hypothesis, perhaps. Well, one of the greatest intelligence analysts in my history, in my study of history, a man that I admired and respected, who died about the time I was born, a fellow by the name of Charles Fort. And I have a quote from Charles Fort that I need to share with you this afternoon. And it touches upon the reality of the subject that we're discussing this afternoon. Charles said in 1919, "I think we are property. I should say we belong to something. That once upon a time the earth was a no man's land. That other worlds explored and colonized here and fought among themselves for possession. But that now it's owned by someone or something, owns this earth, and all others are warned off." Now, this is in 1919. I suspect that all of this has been known perhaps for ages to certain ones upon the earth. A cult or order members of which function like bellwethers to the rest of us, or as superior slaves or overseers, directing us in accordance with instructions received from somewhere else in our mysterious usefulness. This is in 1919. Charles Fort, one of the greatest intelligence analysts of all time. I'm sorry? Charles Fort. They created what's known as the Fortean Society in memory of him. And as a matter of fact, there's an organization, I think Fate magazine is probably affiliated with the Fortean Society. But Charles was way the hell ahead of his time. But he paid attention. Now I have another quote, if you bear with me. Before he died in 1971, Professor Fred Hoyle, a world-famous British astrophysicist in London, said at a small news conference, "Human beings are simply pawns in a game of alien minds that control our every move. They are everywhere, in the sky, on the sea, all over the earth. It is not just an alien intelligence from another planet or another star system, but it is actually from another universe, which from our very beginning has been controlling all that has been happening since." And not long after that, Fred Hoyle died. An astrophysicist. Man, he's getting close. Charles Fort, we're property. Fred Hoyle, we are owned by someone. Someone's manipulating us. Now, there's another brilliant writer, philosopher, a guy I've met and a guy I respect, by the name of William Bramley, who's written a dynamite book called The Gods of Eden. And many of you have read Bramley's book. I'd hoped that Bill Bramley would show up here. That's not really his name. He's an attorney, and that's a pseudonym. It's a nom de plume, as they say. But in his book, Bramley said this, and that book is dynamite. "Human beings appear to be a slave race, languishing on an isolated planet in a small galaxy. As such, the human race was once a source of labor for an extraterrestrial civilization, and still remains a possession." Now, those of you who are familiar with the work of Zecharia Sitchin, you're going to have some clicking going on in your head here. Remember what old Zechariah said. The Anunnaki literally created us as a workers' race. Anyhow, they created us as a source of labor for an extraterrestrial civilization, and we still remain a possession. Today, to keep control over its possession and to maintain Earth as something of a prison that other civilizations have bred, never-ending conflict among human beings has promoted human spiritual decay and has erected on Earth conditions of unremitting physical hardship. Boy, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? This situation has existed for thousands of years and continues today. Furthermore, it is conceivable that the alleged ownership of Earth may have changed hands over the millennia in the same way that ownership of a corporation can pass among different owners without the public even being aware of it. Now, these little tidbits. Fort, Bramley, Fred Hoyle. Oh, bear with me, another quotation.